war is where the young and stupid are tricked by the old and bitter into killing each other.
Niko was born in Yugoslavia in 1978. It was implied that his father was an abusive alcoholic. His mother, Niko Bellic, was unhappy that her son grew up in such a harsh place. In a conversation with Patrick McReary, Niko reveals that he had a brother who died during the Yugoslav wars. According to the dialogue in the mission Taking in the Trash, Niko dreamed of becoming an astronaut when he was a child. Niko grew up in the harsh environment of the Yugoslav wars, and was a teenage soldier. The Yugoslav wars were fought between 1991 and 2001, which means that Niko was only 13 to 23 years old at the time. Niko says that he was betrayed 10 years ago, making it closer to 1997 or 1998. Although Florian claims that it was 12 or 13 years ago in a phone call after the mission that special someone. He served as a helicopter pilot and an infantryman during the war, and during the mission Easy Fare, Roman alludes to him driving a tank. During the war, Niko both witnessed and committed numerous atrocities, which led to his cynical perspective on life, and a certain degree of regret, depression, and emotional detachment. Eventually, Niko's unit of 15 men, most of them friends from his hometown, were ambushed by enemy forces, but Darko Brevic, Florian Krabic, and Niko himself survived. Niko concluded that either Florian or Darko had sold the group out, and he vowed to uncover and kill the culprit, not only to gain revenge, but also to hopefully close the book on the incident and move on with his life. Niko had trouble finding steady work after the war. Niko's cousin, Roman, had already moved to America to start a new life in Liberty City, while Niko spent the next decade working in the European criminal underworld, leading to a period of incarceration in a European penitentiary. Niko says that he found out his aunt, Roman's mother, was raped and murdered sometime after Roman's departure to the United States. Knowing Roman would be even more devastated if he knew the true circumstances of his mother's death, Niko covered up what happened, telling him that she died in a house fire. After his release from European prison, Niko began working for a human trafficking ring led by Ray Bulgarin. When a boat involved in the operation sank in the Adriatic Sea during a smuggling run into Italy, Niko swam to safety, but everything and everyone else was lost. Bulgarin believed that Niko had intentionally scuttled the ship and stole his money. Bulgarin's reach was too great within Europe, so Niko joined the merchant navy to escape him. During the game, Niko says he moved to Liberty City because he wanted a new life by living the American dream. But when he does arrive in Liberty City, he has nothing except Roman. Roman's connections eventually led to Niko making friends with Little Jacob, and taking work from the Russian mafia, setting in motion the events of the game. Niko eventually becomes in forced contact with an international affairs agency front under the name of United Liberty Paper, who blackmails him into doing some country protecting work. Also, Ray Bacino managed to help Niko find Florian Krabic. When Niko confronts him, Florian, who now calls himself Bernie Crane, begs for forgiveness and claims he is not only a homosexual but that he is not the one who betrayed Niko, despite escaping. Niko forgives him and actually begins helping Bernie with his life. As a sign of gratitude towards Niko for his work with them, the United Liberty Paper locate Darko Brevic in Romania and smuggle him into Liberty City. Niko confronts Brevic, who confesses that he sold Niko's army unit out for $1,000, which he used to fund his heroin addiction. Enraged at the fact his unit were betrayed for such a paltry sum, Niko holds Brevic at gunpoint. Whether Niko kills Brevic or not depends on the player's actions. Niko's immigrant status is uncertain and arouses the suspicion of the LCPD and FIB. Although Niko often protests that he has his papers while fleeing police, Roman says that Niko does not have a visa. This is further evidenced in a Liberty Tree article about the death of the Platypus's captain, Zorba Philippidis, which states that none of the crew possess visas. Not much is known about Niko's life during the events of Grand Theft Auto 5. It is hinted that he has completely given up a life of crime, and has now retired. While setting up for the first heist, Lester Crest mentioned to Michael DeSanta that he knew an Eastern European guy making moves in Liberty City, but dismissed the idea as he went quiet. This would hint that he'd continued his life as a career criminal for a few more years before leaving it, especially if he was able to gain such notoriety as recently as of 2013. If Michael survives the events of Grand Theft Auto 5, one potential scenario in his house sees his family gathered around the dining room table. Jimmy, Michael's son, is writing his resume on a laptop. However, the screen displays a Life Invader profile page. By using a camera to zoom in, the page is revealed to be that of Niko Bellic, complete with an image of the character. He now lives in Broker, still working as a taxi driver for Bellic Cab Service, and is still in contact with Mallory Bardas, Little Jacob, and Brucey Kibbutz, who all liked his latest status. There is also a happy birthday note for Roman which was dated as being posted 40 minutes prior. In early beta versions of GTA 4, Niko had slightly thicker hair and sometimes he can be seen with a buzz cut, neither of which appear in GTA 4, but still exist in the game files. From the beginning, it is clearly evident that Niko's suffering from a quarter-life crisis. Having grown up in difficult conditions and witnessed the horrors of warfare, Niko in general feels frustrated, fatalistic, confused with his life's direction, pessimistic, overwhelmed, unappreciated, cynical, and unfulfilled. Niko is very protective of his family and loved ones, particularly his cousin Roman, whom Niko constantly has to worry about due to his gambling habit. Roman has an indiscreet nature of frequently getting the pair into trouble. He is withdrawn among strangers, but has good manners and shows a softer side with love interests like Kate McReary and Michelle. That said, the horrors of war, both witnessed and perpetrated by Niko, have given him a great sense of guilt and an ambivalence about the value of human life. He warns away pursuers and expresses regret over his past violence, but also feels that killing is all that he can do, readily taking on jobs which necessarily involve murder. Niko's bitterness at the murder of his friends during the war has consumed him, and he is unable to let it go, taking on several highly dangerous jobs merely to enable his quest for vengeance. He has an apparent distaste for illegal drugs, much like Carl Johnson and Victor Vance. He frequently turns down Little Jacob's offers for marijuana and warns Packy about his cocaine habit. He also finds it distasteful to traffic in cocaine and particularly heroin, although this may be due to the heavy jail sentences they attract as much as any moral qualms. He is skeptical of American mainstream culture, which he sees as shallow and hypocritical, and has trouble relating to Roman's fascination with the country. However, he reasons that being in America is far better than back in Serbia due to the country's instability and misery. Niko has a certain degree of empathy for other people, even random strangers, and feels obliged to help others who cannot help themselves. Niko almost always refuses alcohol when it is offered to him. He asks for water in the mission Ivan the Not So Terrible, except for the mission The Holland Play where Playboy X pours him a glass. Niko goes to drink it, but changes his mind and puts the glass on a table. Niko does seem to enjoy a drink, but knows the time and place for it. He refuses alcohol outright in instances where he needs to keep a sharp mind, such as during missions. Without the player's control, Niko will never hit female pedestrians. For example, when Niko carjacks someone, the animation can sometimes see him punch or kick the occupant of the car, but he only does this to male drivers. If the driver is female, Niko will just pull her out of the car and not harm her. The name Niko means nobody or nothing in the Serbo-Croatian language. The surname Bellic would not exist in that language, as it does not allow consecutive consonants. Niko's voice actor, Michael Hollick, is American, and the accent he assumes for Niko stereotypes Eastern Europeans, Slavic peoples, in general, instead of being specifically Serbian. Niko appears to be visually inspired by Sasha from the 2001 movie Behind Enemy Lines, which takes place in Bosnia and Herzegovina during the war. Sasha's clothes are even available to buy in the Russian shop. Sasha's actor Vladimir Mashkov later confirmed in an interview that he was asked to play a man with a dark past, with a slightly rumpled appearance in an unnamed video game, whose producers liked his performance as Sasha. Given few details about what he was being asked to do or what for, Mashkov thought it was a questionable proposal and not very interesting, and he turned it down. Only later did he learn that the game was GTA 4. Niko was voted 13th in the 2011 edition of the Guinness World Records for the top 50 favorite game characters. Niko Bellic is available as a special parent in Grand Theft Auto Online, used in creating the player's custom character, alongside Misty, Claude and John Marston from Red Dead Redemption. Niko is referenced in an episode of the TV series Criminal Minds. In the episode, a missing child is reported as being named Niko Bellic. The senior agent Rossi immediately catches on. Niko Bellic is the name of the main character of Grand Theft Auto 4. According to Roman, Niko was a reckless driver in his home country. When destroying Roman's cab during Easy Fare, Roman will joke on how Niko always blows up normal cars but doesn't crash the tanks from back home. One of Niko's girlfriends, Alexandra Chilton, frequently reveals on her blog that Niko has a very large penis, comments refer to his bulging package and how well hung he is. After Niko sleeps with her for the first time, she writes on her blog that she is to discuss this with her friends, Heidi and Paige. Alex also comments that he can be rough and kinky, including a session where he bullfrogged her over a washing machine, which she recorded and spanked her with a frying pan, among others. She also writes how she once had to steam clean her whole flat after he left. Alex wonders if all Europeans are like that, which also ties in with Niko's cousin, Roman, and his attitude towards sex, as someone is often on the prowl for young college girls. In GTA 5, one can find a wanted poster for Niko on a table near a trailer in the Grand Sonora Desert. Niko is the most combat-trained protagonist of the entire series at the start of a game. In GTA 5, a homeless man can be found holding a sign that begs for money, and it says that some Serbian men robbed him. This could be a reference to Niko. The surname Bellic is derived from the word Belo, which means white in the Serbo-Croatian languages. If Niko's name is directly translated into English, it would be Nicholas White. Lester Crest's mention of Niko going quiet could be a reference to Niko's voice actor Michael Halic's dispute with Rockstar Games, resulting in his refusal to voice Niko in further games.